First story I want to get into today is about Yelp, the review site and app that you use to find restaurants, to leave reviews for restaurants, find out how restaurants are. Really an invaluable thing when you're on vacation, for example, and you're trying to find some place to eat. Yelp is now going to flag businesses that have been accused of overt racism. From October 9th, an article from theblaze.com, Yelp will flag businesses accused of racist behavior. Yelp announced on Thursday a new alert will warn users when someone associated with this business was accused of racist behavior. Now, this is in a statement on a blog from Yelp. Quote, as the nation reckons with the issues of systematic racism, we've seen in the last few months that there is a clear need to warn consumers about businesses associated with egregious, racially charged actions to help people make more informed spending decisions. Now, when a business gains public attention for reports of racist conduct, such as use racist language or symbols, Yelp will place a new business accused of racist behavior alert on their Yelp page to inform users, along with a link to a news article where they can learn more about the incident. Okay, let's pause right there. Now, this seems like it is a good idea. It seems like, absolutely, you should know which businesses, which companies, if there are companies and businesses are around you or that you may be a patron of, if they're accused of racist behavior or they have a history of, having instances of racially motivated, attacks or racially motivated incidents. If this were something that were done in good faith, I would say absolutely, this is a good thing. But it's 2020 right now, and people will do anything to destroy someone else if they don't agree with them. We're in an era now where people will cancel you, will advocate for you to lose your job, will advocate for you to be shamed in public if you don't parrot exactly what they're saying. That's not an exaggeration. That is literally just going by what we've seen over the last few months in our country, where if there are protesters out there like Antifa, like BLM, like people that are marching around saying you must put your fist up, you must say Black Lives Matter, you must say I apologize for my white privilege. There are these groups that are going around demanding people voice their support for their cause and for their views. And if they don't, we've seen people get beat up. We've seen people get almost killed. We've seen people get killed. We've seen ideologies become so prevalent and so dangerous in our modern era that it's led to actual violence and actual disruption in our society. Now, Yelp is going to put this new alert on people's accounts, and this is from an article in The Federalist on October 9th. It says, the company has an existing policy for flagging businesses accused of being racist based on news reports or social media posts. According to internal research, Yelp says it had a 133% increase in the number of media-fueled incidents on Yelp compared to the same time last year. The company also announced that it already placed 450 alerts on business pages that were either accused of or the target of racist behavior related to the Black Lives Matter movement. So now we have a company that is bowing to a group that, if you disagree with their movement, if you disagree with Black Lives Matter, and it's something that is known at your business or something that someone can accuse you of, now Yelp will place an alert on your business's page. Now, if this was something, like I said, that had been done in good faith, then absolutely, it's something that is good. It's something that, could help people's overall experiences, maybe avoid racist incidents. But if you don't think that this is going to be weaponized, you're out of your mind. Just look at the salon owner in San Francisco when Nancy Pelosi got her hair done. Right when it came out that Nancy Pelosi got busted for not abiding by her own COVID-19 restrictions in San Francisco, people attacked the salon owner and attacked the business with hate, and the business had to shut down due to these threats and due to the fear of violence and whatever else may come with doing something that opposed the left. And that's just one instance where one half of the population had a viewpoint on the situation, and that half of the population that was saying, how dare this salon owner put out this footage to bust Nancy Pelosi? The reaction to that was to find the salon owner and to cancel her and to make her life living hell, which they did, and her business had to be shut down. And this is just one example of a business owner having to close their business and having their real life being impacted by having a dissenting viewpoint. And this is something that I think is going to be abused big time by, bad actors and people that want to target businesses that just show their support for certain causes. This is from a list reportedly organized by an Antifa organization in Portland. This is, quote, Antifa is organizing a list of non-friendly businesses, aka any company that is hanging Blue Lives garbage in their store or anything else that is anti the BLM movement. What about businesses that get flagged? What about businesses that are doing everything by the book and it's a family business? They've been doing everything for decades, but they won't raise their hand when BLM comes into their business and makes them put up their hand in solidarity with them and saying that Black Lives Matter, no matter what that term means to that particular person. Now, Yelp is saying that for these alerts, they are going to post a link to a news article. How many times in the news over the last few years, or especially in the last 5, 6, 7 months, when we've talked about businesses being targeted, when we've seen people on the streets of Washington and the streets all over the country being basically hunted down and chased by people that are rioting and protesting, and those people are demanding that those people pledge their support for their causes. How is this something that is not going to be abused by people? It absolutely is. And a company feeling that they need to take a stance on social justice, and a company feeling that they need to show their support for certain causes, which is going to alienate other people, whether you agree with the BLM movement or not. This is something that is creeping into all sectors of our society. It is affecting people, and I think a lot of businesses out there that get accused of nonsense allegations of racist behavior just because they had a bad experience there, or because they're hanging a Blue Lives Matter sign. It's something that is just going to lead to bad things. I don't see how there's any positives. Now, if this was going to be a thing by Yelp where they were going to vigorously, investigate every single claim, and they were going to make sure these news articles are real and not quote unquote fake news or just something that is cooked up by the media or someone with an agenda, I think that a lot of businesses have problems on their hands upcoming because of Yelp. I think Yelp is going to lose business because of this, even though it is such a great attraction of traffic to your businesses and what your business offers. I think there's going to be a lot of businesses out there that say, you know what, I'll take my advertising business somewhere if there's a business out there that can take it into their own hands, that decides who and what I support. And if I don't support that, any group out there that accuses me of, in their words, overt racism, how are these businesses going to survive if there's nonstop negative reviews about racism on their page when they're unsubstantiated? I just think it's ridiculous, and I think people are going to move away from Yelp, even though it is such a valuable tool, especially for small businesses that are trying to spread the word on their businesses. Yelp, I don't know what you're doing. I don't understand why you feel you need to, stick your toe in the water of this combating racism movement, but I really hope it backfires on you, because any company that gets woke, I really hope they go broke. What's up to all my listeners? Just want to remind you, if you can, to head over and rate and review the podcast on any platform that you are listening to the podcast on. If you've got a comment about any of the episodes, just go ahead and leave me a review and drop us a 5-star. Again, this really helps the spread of the podcast. It really helps the word get out, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you take a few seconds to head on over to your choice of podcast platforms, throw the show a 5-star rating, and review it if you can. If you enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you help spread the word. And now, back to the show. Now, I know I say this a lot, but when I get into stories, I say that it's so beyond the pale of ridiculousness that I don't even know how to comprehend it. So here we have another one of these examples. The University of Kentucky has now implemented segregated residential assistance training by race, sent white people to white accountability space. Let me read that again. This is a headline from the Daily Wire by Ash Show on October 10th. University of Kentucky's segregated residential assistance training by race sent white people to white accountability space. Now, it wasn't too long ago on an episode where I said we're heading towards a country where we're going to have one color on one side and another color on the other. We're going to have whites over here. We're going to have blacks over here. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Little by little by little, we're just going to be separated and separated and separated. Now, even though this could be meant in quote unquote good faith, the universities taking it upon themselves to tell white people that they need to take specified training for their white accountability, it really just pisses me off, and I think it should piss off every single person that doesn't believe in this whole woke culture. From the article, whites and non-whites training to be residential assistants at the University of Kentucky were segregated according to their race and put through different presentations. The separate trainings were provided to Young America's Foundation through the organization's campus bias tip line, which included emails and documents about the training. White RAs were sent to a white accountability space where they were given a document that listed 41 common racist behaviors and attitudes of white people. Number 1 on the list states that white people, quote, believe they have earned what they have rather than acknowledge the extensive white privilege and unearned advantages they received, and believe that if people of color just worked harder. The list also includes claims that white people, quote, don't notice the daily indignities that people of color experience. They deny them and rationalize them away with PLEs, which is perfectly logical explanations, and they, quote, resent taking direction from a person of color and tend to ask, quote, people of color to repeat what they have said. Brandon Colbert from the university's Bias Incident Support Services offered a presentation for the training allegedly talking about, quote, microaggressions and micro-invalidations in the workplace and the harm that they cause. As Young America's Foundation Kara Zupkis reported, Colbert's previous tweets have, quote, denounced the American flag, national anthem, and Independence Day, all as being the stuff that makes America racist. The article continues. This is a student talking to Young America's Foundation. Quote, we talked about how we could best support our minority colleagues and be more mindful of microaggressions we commit against them every day by being white. They wanted us to acknowledge our extensive white privilege. The University of Kentucky did not defend or explain the training session when responding to YAF. Quote, our RAs trained by Zoom together and also in breakout sessions around particular topics of interest, said university spokesman Jay Blayton. Further, a number of our students and others in our campus community have approached our counseling center for resources that can be provided to help on issues related to racial reconciliation. Young America's University of Kentucky chapter president Parker Bowman gave a statement to Zupkis as well. Quote, this action by the university to segregate RA training is abhorrent. For a campus that prides itself on diversity, that is taking a step in the wrong direction. We should be talking to each other, not separating ourselves based on immutable characteristics. All right, I've got a few bones to pick on this whole situation. Who in their right minds think that this is going to make the world a better place? Weren't we fighting for equality? Weren't we fighting for, racial equality and everybody being equal and everybody having equal rights and social justice and reform of this, reform of that, to make it better for this one, to make it better for that one? Who in their right mind thinks that this is going to be a good idea? Who in their right mind thinks that this isn't going to alienate the white people that aren't woke? Because not all white people are woke. Not all black people are woke. Not all people in general are woke. There is this segment of the population called woke scolds that everyone talks about, that their mission is to make you as miserable as they are. If you're not as woke as they are, they're more virtuous than you. If you're not as woke and if you're not as socially active in social justice movements, then you are not woke enough and you are not good enough and you need to be canceled. We've gotten to that point now. And now we've gotten to a point on a major campus in the United States, University of Kentucky, that is separating their RAs and their training between white accountability and minority training as well. Who the hell are they to tell me about privilege? Who the hell are they to tell these white people that they're privileged? Do you know their backgrounds? Do you know every single person's background on that campus? Do you know every single white person on that campus had privilege? Is that something that they are saying? Because with them having no statement on it, they're basically endorsing this idea. They set this idea up for their RA training. So the University of Kentucky, how woke do you possibly have to get people to unenroll from your school or to stop applying for your school? Because this is nonsense, and this is something that I don't even know how people can put up with this. How can a white person seriously walk into a class, be handed a sheet with 41 microaggressions that they're not aware of because of their white privilege? Get the hell out of here, people. This is getting to a point now where, just like I said and like I had mentioned on a previous episode, we're getting to a point where whites are on one side, blacks are on another. The left is on one side, the right is on another. There's no common ground. And now we're literally telling people on college campuses that are being trained to look after dormitories. That's what RAs do. I mean, I've never stayed on a college campus as a student, but RAs are the ones that keep things in order in the dormitories. So now we're going to tell the white RAs that they need to acknowledge and be aware of all of their privileges that they assume that the university assumes that they have because of their immutable characteristic of being white. Those white RAs are now being walked into training, and they're being told that they need to be held accountable for the privilege that they hold for being white. Are you sick and tired of this? Is this getting a little old to you? Does this sound ridiculous? Because the anecdotal evidence and the small stories that we've had over time of this happening and racial segregation happening, and I'm going to get into it in this next story that I'm going to do, we're getting to a point now where segregation is becoming normalized. Segregation is being rooted on by universities and companies. Yelp, for example, and this is unrelated to their last stupid decision, Yelp now said that they're going to be putting alerts on Yelp for black-owned businesses to raise awareness and to have people support black-owned businesses more. Isn't that racist? Isn't that saying that we should patron one business because of the color of the owner's skin instead of another business? What kind of message is that sending? What kind of message is that sending to our younger children? What kind of message is that sending to the country as a whole that this is becoming acceptable, that we segregate people on college campuses and to have white people acknowledge their whiteness and their assumed privilege? I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. It's BS. And I feel like a university like this that endorses this type of behavior, I don't think that they deserve enrollment. Stop enrolling there. Stop applying there, people. Do you really want to be on a campus where white people are assumed to be privileged just by the color of their skin? Because it's not an exaggeration anymore. People have been talking about it. This is where we're heading. This is where we're going. And guess what? Here we are. Racial segregation for RAs in training on the University of Kentucky's campus. No comment from the school. And segregation is here in certain parts of our country. Here's one example, and my next example is also going to show you that even though some universities do have pushback on this type of nonsense, universities are open to the idea and are open to exploring ways to make minorities and black people more comfortable. What about the white people? What about the Asian people? Why is it just white people that are racist? Why can't black people be racist? Everyone can be racist. Stop assuming that everyone has privilege. Stop assuming that by the color of your skin, you need to take a special course to show that you understand how privileged you are. Okay? Enough with this. This is BS. This is nonsense. And it's something that I frankly am just so pissed off about and just so bothered by that it's being accepted and being endorsed on college campuses and not even at, nowhere Middlesville University. It's happening on major college campuses. The State University of Kentucky is now endorsing segregated training for RAs based on your skin color. Welcome to 2020, everybody. Now, this next story is building upon the segregation that is happening on the University of Kentucky's campus. And when I first heard about this story, I held off a little bit just because I wanted to see if it was something that was going to be implemented at the university. And it turns out that it is not. But I will talk about the movement that started on NYU's campus to start implementing and building segregated housing. Now, here is an article from thepostmillennial.com, James Anthony from August 24th. NYU to implement segregated dorms in the name of equality. The article starts off, New York University students have been pushing strongly for racially segregated housing this year, and the university has just given the green light according to NYU's own website. And what can be described as a growing trend to bring racial segregation back to American society on a large scale, NYU's Office of Residential Life and Housing Services has been working with small groups of students to implement housing in undergraduate student dorms based on race. This idea actually goes back to the year 2002 when NYU senior staff first looked into the idea of grouping African American students together so they could, quote, be stronger, but at the same time the idea wound up rejected. However, since 2016, the university has started to take the idea seriously again. Now, when I looked further into this, the statement from NYU from their own website, I could not find that. There's been a lot of things that have scrubbed off the websites and scrubbed off the internet recently in the past few months when we're talking about censorship, but I couldn't find that original statement from NYU saying that they had given the green light. This is from their independent student newspaper. Student-led task force calls for black housing on campus. This is from July 20th of this year. It goes on to talk about why some students feel that they need racially segregated housing. The experiences prompted the students to start the task force called Black Violets, a group calling for measures to protect black students on campus. The group has gained traction through various petitions advocating for more black professors in the Department of Politics and first-year exploration floors dedicated to black housing, among others. The petition for black housing has gained attention in the Student Government Assembly. Steinhardt sophomore Shaman Lawrence, the incoming alternate senator at large for black students and students experiencing food insecurity in SGA, is passionate about the initiative. He said, "I found out about Black Violets and the work they were doing through their petition and wanted to be on the forefront of asking for these important structural changes. Since then, Lawrence and Black Violets have been in contact with Jesse Maloney, the president of Inter-Residential Housing Committee, and first-year exploration floors dedicated to black students are on track to becoming a reality in fall of 2021. Now, in NYU News, in this article, which was before the post-millennials one, it did say the first-year exploration floors dedicated to black students are on track to become a reality in the fall of 2021. But a fact-check article that was written by the AP, NYU is not implementing racial segregation in dorms, by Allie Swanson, August 25th. Now, it does say that the claim of NYU has been working with small student-led task force to make a racially segregated housing a reality in undergraduate student dorms. It does say that that claim is false. But in the AP's assessment, it does say, NYU does not have and will not create student housing that excludes any student based on race, the university said in a statement. After a student group applied to establish a dorm floor around themes of black history and culture earlier in the summer, NYU clarified such floors must be open to students of all races and backgrounds. NYU wraps up the statement, or at least in this portion of the statement in the AP piece. The university strongly supports the goals of diversity and of creating an environment that is welcoming, supportive, and inclusive for students of color and students from marginalized communities. However, NYU does not have and will not create student housing that excludes any student based on race. I didn't do this story and didn't share this to try to get one over, try to say, okay, this is happening even when their statement says it's not. The importance of this article, though, is to say that segregation on college campuses is something that student-led groups are advocating for, just like this group at NYU, Black Violets. Now, any group that is, fighting for a cause, I'm all for it. Do what you got to do to fight for what you believe in. But when a university says that they are going to, or that they are at least entertaining the idea of racially segregated housing, it makes you believe, where are we headed? If this is the tip of the spear, then what's at the end of the spear? What are we talking about here? We're talking about separating people based on their race when they're staying at college? How does that help the world? How does that help the country? How does that help us come together? How does that fix the problem of inequality that everybody talks about? I think it's wild that universities, especially of this, prestige, I know like a lot of Ivy League schools and a school like NYU used to have, impeccable reputations that people would definitely kill to go to these universities. That has dropped off in recent years, in my opinion. Just look at what's going on at Yale, Harvard, and all the rest of the Ivy League schools. It's just wild that universities and schools out there are even entertaining this idea. I feel like this is something, if you're a university president or you're someone that is in charge of making these decisions, this is something where you take a stand. When your students come to you and come up with such a ludicrous idea of separating people based on their skin color, you should say, thank you for your time, leave my office. We are not in the business of segregating people. We're not in the business of protecting one race from the other. No, we are all one. We are all on this campus as students, and they should be treated equally as such. Making segregated housing, or even talking about making segregated housing, just shows that people are so comfortable and so willing to exclude people that don't have the same skin color as them that it's so troubling and so mind-boggling that this is becoming such a prevalent part of our society. It's creeping into every single sector, every single segment, every single thing we do is being ripped apart by these people that have this ideology that white people are evil and racist and privileged and black people need to be protected by them. Enough with this nonsense. Stop being such little cowards with no backbone. Stop being such little cowards that are so scared of a differing idea and a differing opinion and a differing viewpoint and a different race. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and start being an adult, because in real life, not on college campuses, in real life, there's no segregated spaces. Okay? I know that in this country, so many people would want that, and so many people are fighting for that, and so many people would kill for white people to have to take courses on their privilege and black people to be protected on college campuses. Yeah, no. This is not what we're about. This is abhorrent that this is even being considered. I compliment NYU on making the statement that they are not going to be doing this, but that did come at least a month after the stories started dropping about segregated housing even being thought of as an idea on NYU's campus. Segregated housing on college campuses, it's here. Student groups are fighting for it, and what are we going to do about it? I really hope enough people take a stand and say that they're not going to be putting up with this, because it is something that is completely unacceptable in today's society. And I'll wrap up this episode with a story from the University of Minnesota about the amazing wokeness of some universities and their incessant need to push woke scold culture, woke scold mindsets on to their students. The willingness of these universities to just bow down to a vocal minority. And I've talked about that on several episodes in the past, about this vocal minority of everything is racist, everything must be torn down, white people need to take responsibility for their actions and their microaggressions, and they need to admit their privilege and all of this stuff. It's really amazing that this is now on college campuses. I know I've repeated myself several times, but the fact that this is being taught on college campuses, whether it's in a school setting, by a lecturer, by a professor, or even a speech by someone that's on campus. But that does not top what the University of Minnesota has done. The University of Minnesota, this is from an article from the Daily Wire, Hank Berrien, October 15th. University of Minnesota offers lecture teaching 12-step AA-type program to recover from being white. The article begins, the University of Minnesota's School of Social Work and Continuing Education series recently hosted what they called a special webinar series that was titled Deconstructing and Decentralizing Whiteness in Practice, a 3-part series, in which a lecture titled Recovery from White Conditioning taught white people how to use a 12-step program similar to Alcoholics Anonymous to recover and reclaim our full humanity. So already they've got my attention on this ridiculous lecture that went on the University of Minnesota's campus. I couldn't help but laughing when reading the title of this and a little bit of the article, and I'm going to go through the 12-step program that this lecture is all about, and it is about recovering from being white. So this person that is doing the lecture is a therapist called Christina Combs, who created the program, spent, quote, years of struggling to navigate the role and presence of whiteness in her personal, academic, and professional journeys. After asking what comes to mind when you hear the term white supremacy, Combs showed a slide with images of the Ku Klux Klan and white nationalists in Charlottesville, then placed their images with one of herself, commenting, when BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color, activists would use the term white supremacy to talk about the systems that needed to change and the work that white people needed to do, my instinct was to recoil. It felt like too hard or too raw of a word, and I didn't like it. And I ultimately realized that that is my ego. Stepping into that tension and accepting my connection to white supremacy has been a freedom of sorts to show up in better alignment with my values and do the work for the rest of my life. The 12 steps in the program are: Step 1. We admitted that we had been socially conditioned by the ideology of white supremacy. Step 2. We came to believe that we could embrace our ignorance as an invitation to learn. Step 3. We developed support systems to keep us engaged in this work. Step 4. We journeyed boldly inward, exploring and acknowledging ways in which white supremacist teachings have been integrated into our minds and spirits. Step 5. We confessed our mistakes and failings to ourselves and others. Step 6. We were entirely ready to deconstruct previous ways of knowing as they have been developed through the lens of white supremacy. Step 7. We humbly explored new ways of understanding, proactively seeking out new learning and reconstructing a more inclusive sense of reality. Step 8. We committed ourselves to ongoing study of our racial biases, conscious or unconscious, and our maladaptive patterns of white supremacist thinking. Step 9. We developed strategies to counteract our racial biases. Step 10. We embraced the responsibility of focusing on our impact more more than our intentions in interactions with people of color. Step 11, we engage in daily practices of self-reflection. Step 12, we committed ourselves to sharing this message with our white brothers, sisters, and siblings in order to build a supportive recovery community and to encourage personal accountability within our culture. Wow. Well, if you didn't feel bad about being white, do you now? Because that's what this course is meant to do. I honestly feel that these courses are meant to tear down white people, and I don't understand it. I get that we're in this weird time where, white people are being ostracized and white people are being blamed for all of the problems in society, and the straight white male is the big problem here. I just want to know one thing about privilege here with all these people that assume white people have privilege. Do you ever consider people's backgrounds? Do you ever consider people's experiences in life? Do you ever think about some people growing up way more privileged due to money, due to the families that they were born into? Do you think LeBron James's kid is less privileged than the backwoods Kentucky kid at the same exact age, whose family has nothing but what their mother makes as a waitress at the diner, and that they have no father figure in their life because, their mom had a child out of wedlock? Do you ever consider that? Do you ever consider people's life experiences, and do you ever consider people that may not be as privileged no matter what their skin color is? I also want to ask, where was my privilege when I was growing up? I understand that I'm white. I understand, straight white male, Christian male, whatever the problem is, these days. I just want to wonder, was there a certain day that I was supposed to go pick up that privilege? Was there a certain day that I was supposed to, check the box of, okay, I'd like to accept my privilege now? Because when I was younger and I was making all those mistakes, there was no one that was letting me off the hook because I was a white kid. When I was going to high school my senior year in Queens, New York, I didn't know that I had privilege because I didn't have many white friends. So I just need to know, were they privileged, and do they need to accept any responsibility for their minority status because I'm the minority white person in the group? Absolutely not. That's absurd. That senior year, my best friends that I had on my block were a Hispanic named Jose, an Asian named Matthew, and my Hebrew friend named Idan. So I just want to know, was my privilege anywhere there in those situations? Should I have been handing out 12-step guides to my friends to make sure that they accept their status and that they acknowledge my status as a minority in the neighborhood and among the group? Absolutely not. That's absurd. So I really hope that University of Minnesota catches backlash for this. I really hope some people, just like the University of Kentucky, I hope their enrollment lowers, because when you embrace this ideology of white people are bad and they need to accept their status as privileged people, that's when I draw the line. And if you're sending your child to a university and you're not some woke person, if you're sending your child to one of these universities or college that are implementing all of this crap, or offering all of this crap on their campuses that your children are going to be exposed to, that's on you. When your child becomes a radical, when your child says, I'm this privileged person and we need to start going to March for Black Lives Matter, just take some pictures or whatever it may be, I just want those people to know that if you enable your kid to be exposed to all of this, whether it's off or on a college campus, it's on you. And anybody that accepts this, that's not some woke person who walks into a classroom or a lecture, gets handed a paper on a 12-step program for being white, yeah, I'm going to turn around and get the hell out of there, because that is not something I am ever going to put up with. I'll never apologize for my skin color. I'll never apologize for anything that I have not done. I'll never apologize for something that I am not responsible of. And with that said, I'm going to wrap up the episode. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. You've been awesome. Yelp, University of Kentucky, NYU, and the University of Minnesota. We've got race problems. We've got social justice. We've got woke scolds. And we've got cures for being white. It's a 12-step program at University of Minnesota if you're interested. I'm JP Fox, and thanks for tuning in to the Fox Experience. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share the show with your friends. Really helps spread the word on everything. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on any of your podcast platforms. Drop the show a 5-star rating and leave a review if you'd like. Again, share the show with your friends. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Rate, review, tell your friends, tell your family, and I look forward to catching you back here on the next episode of The Fox Experience.